Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 23rd meeting of the Board of Education Facility Committee. I call this meeting to order. Mrs. Merrill and Mrs. Helms are on the phone. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next is the approval of the meeting minutes for February 20th, 2019 and March 20th, 2019. Next month, we will get all the minutes to catch us up to where we are. So just want to let you know that. So I need a motion for the February 20th and the March 20th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next, Mr. Burnett, the old Fairview property appraisal.
Okay, TB Harris provided the appraisal on January 3rd. It came in at $551,000. This was an increase from the last time we had the appraisal.
Last time was what, 520? Was that?
It was about $30,000
less. That's
yes.
what I thought. 520. Okay.
So if the committee is so inclined to surplus the property, staff would request the facilities committee to recommend to the Board of Education to approve the surplus of the parcel known as the old Fairview property.
Right, and this comes about from the county, right?
Yes.
Yes, county is asking for the appraisal of the property, and they might be interested in it. So I need a motion to recommend to the board to approve to surplus the old Fairview property.
Motion to approve the surplus of the old Fairview property.
Okay. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is the Cox Road property.
And this item we had listed as action as we were anticipating some final receipt of a proposal. But if you all are okay, we'll just have this be information. Because the proposal hasn't been received yet. What we have done to date was that the county commissioners have refused the property. We have advertised the property. We placed a sign on the property. We've also listed it in our website because we're now getting a lot of calls. So what I'm able to do is just refer the callers and the prospective buyers to our website. On our sheet, we show you that where it is on our website, and then the second sheet is the information that's provided to the prospective buyers, and it lists also the negotiated offer, advertisement, upset bid process, because that's something I don't want to be going over the phone with each and every time. Because might miss a step or something like that. So we've got that laid out. We worked with our council to get that so that we had all the steps included on that, and we're really waiting any day for the bona fide offer with check in hand for the as per the requirements of the general statute.
Okay, great. So this is just an FYI for now, and the county did at their last meeting. Say they rejected the right of first refusal. Okay, next, true-up funds. So the county commissioners have indicated that they might have some interest in giving us our true-up funds a little bit earlier this year so we can get some projects done over the summer. So this is a list that facilities put together to start talking about those true-up funds and what we would use it for over the summertime. Mr. Burnett?
Yes, and this list came to $3.5 million, which seemed to be in the range that we would anticipate the TRIP funding amount to be. And certainly that can be adjusted if that number is different. The list is attached. It was based on projects that we thought we would like to have the whole summer as opposed to waiting till July 1. And having partial summer for the work. We had a couple items in there that included HVAC, which we're kind of crossing our fingers on that we don't have an issue. And so certainly having the funding sooner rather than later would be a step in the right direction or a better direction for us. Again, it's $3.5 million. It's about a dozen, 2 dozen, projects, and would be happy to, answer any questions on them.
And the land thing is this land stuff that we've discussed in closed session as a board.
And otherwise, the staff is requesting the Facilities Committee to recommend to the Board of Education to approve the funding, to approve the forwarding the proposed true-up list in the amount of $3,535,000.
Do we have any indication when the county wanted to have a meeting in January or February? Have we heard anything?
I haven't heard anything. I had planned to call the county manager
Okay.
Today or tomorrow. Shauna and I talked about this because we still don't have any kind of a firm date
Right, okay.
where they're available. But the last conversation we had was they were interested in having possibly 2 joint meetings, one early in the process and one later in the process.
So this is something we could talk about at that earlier meeting.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And one thing that I did notice, and I was going to talk about when we talk about the CIP, but on this list, we do have one item that has a proposed budget that says TBD, which was to be determined. And that number is $36,000. So we would want to add 36,000 to the 3,535,000. So it should be $3,571,000.
Say that number again, 3 million.
571,000.
Okay. And I guess at some point, depending on what the true up is actually, we will have to rank them in order if it doesn't come in at 3.6 million. Okay, there's no more questions. I need a motion to recommend to the full board to approve forwarding the proposed true up list in the amount of 3.571 million.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is Piedmont High School Stadium and Building Improvements.
In the CIP, current CIP, we have 2 projects with allocated funds. One was for $1,950,000. The other was for $972,800. We did a RFQ for the project, which included replacement of doors, windows, flooring, auxiliary gym locker room. We'll call that a major renovation. And also relocating baseball, softball fields as necessary to accommodate visitor grandstands to the stadium. With that, we would expect support facilities to be in that project, and that would include restrooms, concessions, and press box for baseball and softball. The recommended firm was Morrisburg Architects. They've performed work for us very well at the transportation project, Monroe High School, and further back was Monroe Middle School. Their fee is $225,000. Staff recommends the Facilities Committee to recommend to the Board of Education to approve contracting with Morrisburg Architects in the amount of $225,000.
So I need a motion for that.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend to the full board, approval of the Morrisburg Architects contract work for $225,000.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next up is, that was all the action items. So to go to the full board are the meeting minutes, the old Fairview appraisal, the true up funds, and the Piedmont High School architect and design fee. So, okay, Mr. Burnett, CIP.
Okay. We have, overall, the CIP process it's an ongoing process. We have a 5-year plan that we update annually. We have proposed a draft of that for your consideration. This year, we've got the 2021 plan as well as the 5-year plan included. The one thing I wanted to mention is that we have had a couple TBDs, just like I mentioned on the true-up funds. and that we have updated that. So we emailed just prior to the meeting. Sorry about that. But as we get the pricing in, we do want to provide the latest version. So my memo needs to be updated. What we're looking at is this draft totals approximately 19.7 million. That's an add of $432,000 from a project that was at Porter Ridge,
And that includes the true up funds?
the
$19,000.
$36,000 on the true up funds.
So is the idea that we're going to do like we've done in the past,
Correct.
with members of the facilities committee to go over it?
That's right. This presentation really is the overview,
Okay.
and really wouldn't expect any detailed questions
Okay, great.
today. There's because we could be here really for all
Right.
day and maybe a couple days. Back at the office, we have the information. It's a whole lot easier and better
Okay.
setting, and happy and willing to meet 2x2s and encourage that.
Okay. So you will get with each of us about meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Next,
Next is the
Weddington Cluster, Mr. Ogre.
right.
Good morning. At the board's request, we continue the planning considerations for the various clusters. This month, we decided to go back to Weddington. We had looked at Antioch in the late summer, early fall. And
I have it up here too. It's okay.
this way we can revisit Antioch and include the rest of the Weddington cluster, which includes the Weddington Elementary, a portion of Rayview Elementary, and a portion of Wesley Chapel Elementary.
I see it. It's working.
This is a dot map showing enrollments, or we'll get it. Showing the student layout within the Weddington cluster. All that is shown is the Weddington cluster. You can see the 4 elementary schools outlined in red, and where the concentrations of the students are. This is our current status. Antioch Elementary, you'll notice, is at 120% utilization, and they do have 6 mobile classrooms on site. The other schools you can see there as well, all pretty full, although the high school does have some room.
And to be clear, like you mentioned, Rayview Elementary, only 20% of the kids, of the students at Rayview Elementary
Matriculate to Weddington Middle and High.
I don't have that percentage on the tip of my tongue.
I just
but it's-
have it from the realignment.
it's a
It's around
portion.
there.
It's a portion, yes, ma'am.
And then Wesley Chapel is only, I think it's 65-35. 35 go to Cuthbertson and 65 go to, or somewhere in that
That
range.
sounds about right,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
So I don't want people to see this and be like, ooh.
That's right. And the rest of Rayview goes to Marvin Ridge, and as you mentioned, the
Yes.
rest of Wesley Chapel goes to
To
Cuthbertson.
Cuthbertson, right? Yeah.
For perspective, I included the enrollments at the middle schools and high schools for adjacent clusters, and you'll see they're all in the same range. The asterisk on Sun Valley High School. I'm sorry. The asterisk at Sun Valley High School is the new capacity based on completion of the bond work this summer. And Parkwood is not included. It's technically adjacent to the Weddington cluster, but it's a very small boundary where the 2 clusters meet. There we go. This is a map of the land used within the cluster. Same color coding as we've used in past months. The blue being active subdivisions, active being a relative term. And by that, I mean, if you look at, for instance, Highgate on the northwest corner of the cluster, it's considered active, but really has very few open lots, and it's kind of a onesie or twosie that they build houses there.
Question on Sun Valley's capacity. That doesn't just include the new classrooms that we're building, but it includes the renovation of the existing building to add more classrooms where the admin suite used to be, right? So that'll be another year before that gets to that capacity, potentially.
Yeah, I think the contract completion date is final completion of October. I think substantial completion might be September.
I thought it was fair to include the new capacity, since we're really looking at a more long-term approach rather than.
And I'm fine. I just want people to understand that that's not what we're looking at right now. And hopefully you're right on the September, October.
So like we did last month, we split the Weddington cluster for ease of discussion. The Antioch area, which we discussed, as I mentioned, a couple of months ago. The light blue being active subdivisions, and the purple being subdivisions that are in planning. And here's a list of those subdivisions color coded to the map. And as I mentioned, Highgate is listed as an active subdivision, but it only has 10 open lots, and they build one, maybe two a year. So active is kind of a relative term. Total number of units yet to be built, 735. That includes 300, that's about 40%, at Solis at Chestnut Farm. That is the apartment complex on Matthews Weddington Road, right next to the Mecklenburg line.
Right by Antioch. I guess I'm going to renew my questions about leaving Solis at Chestnut Farm in Weddington and Antioch's area. I know that you have stuff later on. I remain concerned. They lowered the number of units they're going to put in, but they made more 3-bedroom units than what they had originally intended. So that seems to me that it would be more families or kids in that. So I'm just going to throw that out there. We need to keep an eye on this and see and I know you're not ready there yet, but I'm just renewing my concerns.
And a perfectly valid question. Based on what we're seeing currently, we're not going to see any contribution from that development in the next year to our enrollments.
Correct.
So we do have a little bit of time to keep an eye on things and discuss what possible courses we may take.
Unfortunately, the cluster that borders it is Sun Valley, so that has issues too, but Indian Trail is lower than that, and so is Shiloh and the Shilohs. So it's just something to remember to keep on our Yep, thank you. Okay.
So this is the rest of the Weddington cluster. For convenience, I've just called it the Weddington South area. This has Weddington Elementary, Wesley Chapel Elementary, and Rayview Elementary. Same color coding. You can see the very large purple development in the southeast corner. That's the Crestwind development, which is currently a 55 plus, at least in planning, is a 55 plus development. That
it was approved with 55 deed restricted.
It is deed
restricted. It is
restricted.
deed restricted. Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be kids in there at some
Right.
point in time, but it is a 55 deed restricted plan.
So we could believe that it would contribute fewer children than the
Yes.
same size development that was not deed restricted, but absolutely, there could be children enrolling from that area.
But we wouldn't think that there would be as much in it as
That's right.
normal.
That's right. And I would also point to the purple on the western edge. We'll see that. In fact, I'll go to the next slide, which is sugar magnolia in the woods. There's not a lot of activity there, although they have cleared land for sugar magnolia. I believe for the woods, they're waiting for the railroad bypass to the route and some of the plans to be finalized, because it lays right on the
Right on it. And that project got pushed out to a few more years. So
So honestly, at this point, I'm not sure
I hear you.
when that might be coming.
Okay.
And that's pretty sizable too. You can see
Yes.
200 units. But a fair amount of activity. The only apartments
The
that were,
Creeks
I'm sorry?
Landing, sorry, the 197, that's at the roundabout at Airport Road too. So that sits on
That's
the
correct.
border of Sun Valley and Weddington clusters. Okay, sorry.
no, you're fine. The only apartments I'm aware of in the Weddington cluster are the ones we discussed a minute ago, the Solace at Chestnut Farm. And I'm not sure how Crestwind is supposed to come out as to whether that's townhouses or single family, but
Crestwinds they're a Coulter thing. It's all single family 5-foot sidelines.
okay, so close together, but
Yeah, single family.
since it's 55 plus,
Yeah.
it's not a major concern in that area. So you can see we've got 1,472 yet to be built, but that includes the 600 plus at Crestwind. And then we've got, it was about 750 at Antioch, so a total of about 2,200 in both active and planned subdivisions. And here are our cluster cohorts. Kind of go up and down a little bit, but if you look at the Weddington High School, 9, 10, 11, 12, compare it to the Weddington Elementary, K through 5, you can see that in general, the elementary cohorts are smaller than the high school cohorts. So it appears that we should see a declining enrollment depending on the extent of the building and how quickly it builds out. So at this point, what I would say is there are certainly no construction recommendations, even though we've got several schools over 100%. I think we keep an eye on things and consider if the numbers get out of hand, that we consider non-construction alternatives to controlling the enrollment.
I agree with that. We, especially since we have only 2 more years before the full implementation of House Bill 1399, whatever it is. So we have to keep an eye on the elementaries because we have to be able to say that we are in compliance with
and I will share
funded
that
allotments.
the capacities and the utilizations that
Our full implementation,
are
right?
full implement-
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's a little bit better, but we have 2 of the cluster that Weddington and Antioch are already over those capacities, and Wesley Chapel is now full. So, okay. Thank you. So next up is Marvin.
It's at the joy of the board, but yeah, that was the plan. It'd be
Okay,
Marvin
Marvin.
Rich.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Don. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for the inventory on the MCRs. That was a good thing to have, just so we know what they're being used for and stuff. I appreciate
And
that.
I've got more detail. You'll see there are a lot that just are categorized as other.
Uh-huh.
If there are specific questions as to
Okay.
what that means for a specific school, I've got
Okay.
that information.
I appreciate you putting that together. That's good to know. Okay, next up is the drone update from Mr. McManus.
First slide's totally for Mark Strickland there. So I've been asked to put together a brief overview of how we use our drone at facilities. There are many different ways. I'm just going to touch on a few today for you, answering your questions that you may have. Speaking of questions, the first thing that I always get, here's my top 9 questions. The answers to the questions I get, what is that? It is a drone, yes. And yes, it is expensive. And yes, it does have cameras. How high can that thing go? Well, legally 400 feet, but it'll go much higher than that. How long does the battery last? 25 minutes. How fast does it go? 30 knots. What's a knot? It's about 1.15 miles an hour. How far out can it go? Over 2 miles. And then the last one, everybody, can I fly it? No, you cannot fly it. So just a bit of humor and levity to begin with. You all have seen this one. This was the shot that was done out here, I think this past summer. Obviously that's one simple way that we use it. Getting into the nitty gritty of it. As you see on the left-hand side of the screen, you see, the visual camera image, and then on the right-hand side is the infrared. As you see, it's hard to tell, but here's the guy standing. He's actually right there in that picture, and it's hard to see. But he's standing, taking a picture of me, taking a picture of him. It's a student, don't know. But just to show you the different things that we see and why we need 2 cameras there. This is Monroe High School. And as you see on the left-hand side of visual, again, this is kind of going to be typical throughout. Looking at it on the left side visually, you don't really see anything that bad other than some staining. It's not that big of a deal. The right-hand side, if you just took the IR photo, then you would see, hey, what's this issue here? What are these issues up here? As far as the discoloration of the roof decking and material. And then what's this down here? Hey, maybe that's a leak. It's not. Those are walk boards, walk-off mats up here for our HVAC equipment. This is a seam overlap in the roof material, and that's a vent stack right there. So we don't have any issues there. Point that out to say we need both images to be able to determine what's an issue and what's not. Again, same thing, visual on the left-hand side, IR, and you would see all these dashes across, and you're like, hey, what is all this stuff? Those are just seam overlaps in the roll roofing material and the water runoff in the kind of diamond pattern that you see. Now, you see the visual again in the infrared. Here's where we have an issue. We have the decking material that you see here. It looks like kind of a rectangle, and it's saturated. What happens is the water, moisture underneath the decking material heats up differently than the decking material itself. So we get this image, and we see that we have some type of leak in let's call it the ISO board or the insulation board underneath it is getting wet and is retaining moisture there. Similar image here, just a different view of it. Looks good here visually on the left-hand side, looks great. But as we see, we do have a pinhole or a leak here where it's darker in the middle and then fans out where it's holding that moisture in there. So you really got to have both of them to see. Visually, if we walked that deck, we wouldn't have been able to see it. We would have said, oh, it looks good. But with the infrared, we're able to see, hey, we have an issue here. We got to check it out. We use it for, those are for roofs, obviously. And we use it for building envelope. This is actually looking into Dave's office because we had a leak. And as you see the green and the reds, obviously the reds are hotter. The greens are a little cooler and the blues are actually cool. As you see the sections of building, this is green. And then where we have a leak and it's coming down inside the wall, it's all blue, so it's cooler. We're able to see that, one, we don't have much insulation there, haven't had it since 1980 when the building was built. And then also that there is a potential leak. We've been able to thoroughly inspect and look at our barrel roofs that we have not been able to safely get upon. You have to be tied off and so on and so forth. To do so with the drone, we can look at it infrared and visual inspections. I believe this is actually Marshville. We're able to look at construction. I put this in here because for 2 reasons. One, it is the canopy project at Parkwood High School, and the electricians, contract electricians are up there actually running some pipe at this time the picture was taken. and had no idea that the electricians or whomever actually spelled out MT in some piping on the roof. Don't know that we would have ever caught that without the drone until it showed up in some Google Photos and everyone starts asking who's MT. That's been removed. This was an old photo. But we're able to catch that too. We're also using it for our chimney inspections. This one's actually South Providence. You can see some major cracking that we have going on up here in the middle of that, starting to separate and so on and so forth. This one's a little harder to see because it's dark in here, but you can see daylight through where the grout/mortar has pushed out the top of those. And then this one, silhouette, you can obviously tell we have bricks missing at the top of this one. So we're looking into that, and that's actually in the CIP for us to address. So we're able to safely look at that, and we're able to be able to use these photos to potential bidders as we move forward to see what they're up against. Obviously, we use it to take photos of, again, construction projects. This was recently after Porter Ridge tennis courts were done. It's just a photo. And then we're actually able to not only fly outside with all the infrared and everything, but we're also able to briefly fly inside. We took a photo of this, and communications did a great job.
New gym, Porter Ridge.
Made it look very good. So obviously we flew this with no one in the gym other than us. So it's completely safe for us to do so. But just briefly shows you all the capabilities or some of the capabilities of the drone. So
That's awesome.
any questions?
That's awesome.
No.
Yeah, can I?
I mean,
No.
yes, ma'am, you can. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the construction update. You should have got it emailed to you this morning. We'll quickly go through it.
Yeah, and given the holidays, really, we didn't have too much change
Yeah.
from the last update. So this is a little bit smaller version. But Transportation Center, again, is progressing nicely. You can see the aerial photograph there. Inside the building, inside the administration area, metal stud work was about 95% complete. And the roof is supposed to start next week there. Masons are laying the split face veneer. You can see the large area, the bus bays. One of the milestones was a mezzanine slab that's in place. Overall, again, the contract is still tracking towards a June completion. And as far as payment, it's about 55% paid out and complete. And this contract value is $13.4 million. For Sun Valley High School, I took a lot of photos. I compared them against the last photos. We're at that stage where you really couldn't see much difference. But as far as percentages of work complete, overall, the project, the masonry is 83% complete, roofing is 58% complete, mechanical is 51% complete. And again, these are complete and paid.
On track to get the new buildings in spring break.
Correct. G and H, that is the plan. And furniture is scheduled to, is already scheduled to be there at that time. Really, we're just kind of holding the furniture and for that delivery time.
So basically, we have Sun Valley and Transportation.
That's the big project, yes.
Porter Ridge, Hyman are done, Peapod's done, Monroe's done, and Western Union has just made their.
Right, and Western Union has received some of the furniture that we did add, and so that some of that is in place, and we have another. I think the last shipment should be coming this week. So Wolf, major portions of that work are done. As far as how the building is operating, it's operating with the new equipment, except for the cooling tower. The cooling tower, really, we're going to be using that to really help with the well field, and that's hopefully that comes online this week. We are looking to add a generator, for that. And that's really, the school needs a generator, but also this would be a precautionary measure for the cooling tower in case we ever lost power in the wintertime. We wouldn't want that to freeze.
Canopies. So Parkwood, are we almost there?
Well, that's one of our, problem projects. Not much work took place over Christmas holidays. We are, pursuing our options, with that contractor and with the contract.
Your doorbell's all in.
Yes, the video doorbells at the front doors are in at the middle schools and high schools. Stadium lighting, we've got a pre-construction meeting this week. Parkwood High School window replacement. A lot of that happened over winter break. I mentioned only eight windows had to be reordered, and that's in place.
Change order update.
We have two that we're talking about here. One is we're anticipating. At Wolf School, we did have a change order for the tower for an isolation valve at $5,521. That wasn't added to the contract, and we did have the money in that budget, project budget for that. Sun Valley High School, we did have a change order which went against the allowances. So it was a $0 change. The amount of the change was two allowances was $15,000, and that was for we had to add some columns right at the transition between new construction and the existing, and this was on the existing side.
Thank you. In your package, you have your building and zoning permit. You don't go through those, FYIs, and the same with surplus. Anybody have any question on any of those? No. Okay. So now, closed session, I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143.13, 11.85 to discuss the purchase of the property. Motion to go into closed. Second. All those in favor, okay? Good. Okay, just hold on a minute.